I call to order this September 9, 2019 regular meeting of the Board of Selectmen. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And we have approval of minutes of August 19, 2019 regular meeting. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move we approve the minutes of the August 19th, 2019 regular meeting as submitted.
Second?
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Thank you. Next up, it's past the hour of 7 o'clock. We have Skip and Pat Doyle from the Rotary Club. Update on Applefest Street Fair and request to close Blake Street on Saturday, September 21st, 2019 from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. Skip, Pat, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting us to come for the purpose, Jason, that you just described. We're delighted that once again we will have the Applefest Street Fair, and we expect to have 3,000 to 5,000 people, and depending on the weather. And that's what it averages out to be, literally. So, Pat?
As always, we want to thank you for your support. Without the support of the selectmen and the town administrator, we wouldn't have the street fair. And so it is amazing how the street fair has changed and morphed over the years. This year, it's been an interesting mix of people that we've had talk with us about wanting to be part of the street fair. There seems to be an interest amongst the town committees, the Historical Society, the Historical Commission, to get the word out to possibly newcomers or to people who might be looking to move to Northborough to find out what sort of things we have here in town and what the town's all about. We've had some interest from new businesses in town that want to let everybody in town know what they're doing. We're going to have some music this year from local musicians who are going to be playing. The kids are kind of excited, and so it looks as if it's working out to be a pretty full fair. So we're hoping we'll be, going all the way down Blake Street and off to the side as well. We just want to, again, as we say thank you, let you know how the monies, again, remind you how the monies are used that we raise from the street fair. They're used to support activities in Northborough, things that we contribute to. For example, this year, as you know, or may not know, we donated some of the money toward the defibrillator for the library. We have given this year, as in many years, about $8,000 in scholarships to graduating seniors from Algonquin. But even more than that, a year ago, we introduced you to our Nutrition 68 program, which is the 68 hours of food insecurity that some of our young people may have in the schools. It's been well received by the schools. We're going to expand it this year to all of the schools in town. And also the support of the townspeople. So many people saying to us, I had no idea. That's not in Northborough. Isn't that amazing that we have families like that have that much need in Northborough? And donations have been amazing from Northborough townspeople. We also have been awarded a district grant, a Rotary district grant, again this year for $3,000. So we're pretty excited about expanding it to all of the schools. We'll have volunteers. And so at the street fair, we will be having a special raffle that will be directly for Nutrition 68. So, a Chinese auction, it's so called. Little tickets that you can bid on things. So we hope you'll all come and help us raise money for Nutrition 68. So, any questions or?
I'll just start by saying it sounds like a terrific program, and certainly I expect will be very successful. I want to thank you for all the work you've done year after year after year to put this together and make it such a significant portion of Applefest for a lot of people. So it really takes a lot of work to organize it and everything. We certainly appreciate your efforts and Rotary's efforts to do this.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you.
We have to, Skip
Yeah.
did speak to all
Sure.
of the people that are on the street, all of the different businesses, so I'm joking, because that's always your question, so I want to make sure we address that
You
before.
just can't communicate enough.
Right, and
They've all been visited personally, just to let them know when it's going to take place. And, you know, it certainly is an inconvenience for the people that have businesses there, and for the many people that have apartments in the 3 or 4 different buildings there. So we're grateful for their cooperation. And just one other thing I just wanted to mention, that we do have an aspect of Rotary that is also international. And because of the tragedy in the islands that's taken place last week, we have purchased what's called a shelter box. And the shelter boxes are already on the ground. They take the place of a home, a temporary residence that they have. There's going to be many, many thousands of people that are there, that are still going to stay there, that need shelters. So we did purchase one of those. And as soon as there is a tragedy, Shelter Box starts sending them to the tragic areas.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Just, if you,
No, we're good.
Yeah.
any further
Motion, that's right, we
comments?
should have a motion.
Yes, Leslie?
Did you want to say something, Jim?
Oh, I was just going to say, congratulations on the street fair doing so well. I think it's great. Gives local businesses and committees around town an opportunity to interact with people. And also congratulations on the fundraising and the donations that you make. I think those are greatly appreciated around the community, and it's an excellent service. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Leslie?
You're welcome.
Yeah, I wanted to thank you as well. Lots of good work on the part of the Rotary, and there's a lot of work goes into the street fair. How many vendors do we have this year?
About 80?
Somewhere, it's somewhere in the 80s. Some of them are single spaces, and some of them are double spaces. So that's why I'm saying we always say there's plenty of room at the fair. We can always, it's that kind of a street. I mean, if you need to put someone in a corner, there's a corner to put someone in. So we're never full, but we're getting maxed, so it's a good
Wonderful.
thing.
That's wonderful. Thanks so much.
Excellent.
Thank you.
All set. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move the board vote to close Blake Street on Saturday, September 21st, 2019, between the hours of 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. for the annual Apple Fest Street Fair.
Second?
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Great. Thank you very much. We'll see you Saturday.
See you later.
It's now past the hour of 7:05 PM. We have a hearing to consider an application for a special one-day license as submitted by David Brannon for premises located at 309 Main Street. I believe we have Jim Furlong here to handle the business. Yep.
How you doing? I'm Jim Furlong. Thank you for having me here tonight. A quick Rotary note. First year at Challenger, they donated a Bose sound system. So
Nice.
we still use that today to announce the kids as they come up to the plate. And
Excellent.
we sing the songs, and the kids love it. I'm here tonight to year 5. We're looking for a one-day license over at Texas Barbecue. We do a fundraiser for Challenger Sports, which is something we've been running in town here for 6 years. Challenger Sports is a sports outlet for kids 6 to 22 with disabilities. We run a baseball program, a basketball program, and a soccer program. We run our baseball program over at the Melican Middle School, and our basketball and soccer program is run at the Four Kicks in Marlborough. Most of our funding comes from the Fidrich Foundation right here in town. Very generous, and we do this fundraiser. We've done this fundraiser 5 years. Certain things that they can't get for us, like you may have seen a trailer around town. We have a trailer that we haul all of equipment with. We've used the monies from the cornhole tournament for that. And usually whatever's left over, we donate back to the Fidrich Foundation. So
Excellent.
it's been great.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Popular event.
yeah, we've seen you there.
Any questions from the committee? Leslie?
I just have a comment. I want to thank Jim. You do so much work with this, and I think it's a fantastic endeavor. There was a great crowd there last year. Lots of fun.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Very vibrant kind of activity there
Yeah.
on that corner. It's run very well. Everybody has a great time, and see a lot of people that you know, and it's really a very nicely run event, and I just want to congratulate you on all your efforts with this. I think
Yeah,
it's
it's a great day.
fantastic. A lot of people benefit from that.
We thank you for your donation.
Oh, you're welcome.
Any other comments? I'll just say thank you, Jim, for all the work you put
Sure.
into this, and thanks to the Brannon family who generously donate the use of their site at Texas Barbecue to host these last several years, so much appreciated. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move the board vote to approve the application for a special one-day license as submitted by David Brannon for an event to be held in the parking lot adjacent to the Texas Barbecue Company at 309 Main Street on Sunday, October 13th, 2019, between the hours of 12 noon to 6 p.m. Per the recommendation of the Alcoholic Beverages Control Commission, the license shall include the 24-hour period immediately before and after the event in order to allow for the proper delivery and disposal of all alcoholic beverages prior to and immediately following the event, and to further waive the license fee. The following conditions shall apply. 1, the parking lot area for the sale and consumption of alcoholic beverages shall be clearly marked. 2, proper signage notifying guests that alcohol must be consumed within the marked areas of the parking lot. And 3, a permit from the building department is required in the event that a tent larger than a standard easy-up will be used.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Great.
Thank you very much.
We will see you on October 13th. We're going to be seeing a lot of people in the upcoming weeks. It brings us to reports. Julianne?
Yes, well, first I would like to thank John Cordair, Chief Liver, Casey Mellon, and all of the town staff who responded to the EEE situation over the last few weeks, including this past weekend. Information went out on town news and through Code Red, alerting everyone of cases in Massachusetts and information about the spraying. So this might be a good time to say that if anyone out there listening is not signed up for either of these two mechanisms to receive alerts from the town, please think about signing up for these very valuable ways to get information. And the only other thing I have is a question that maybe we could review next meeting. It seems that it was about 6 months ago that we reviewed our appointment for committees and boards policy, and at that time, I think we agreed that if there were a lot of applications coming in, they'd have to be eliminated in about 6 months. And I was wondering if maybe next time we could get kind of an estimate of how many we have, and is it possible to hold them over?
For a longer period of time?
Yeah.
Than 6 months?
I mean, I can provide.
Can you check that information then,
Answer.
Diane? Yeah.
I have one application for a board and committee that doesn't currently have an opening,
Uh-huh.
so.
So it doesn't seem like a burden really then to carry them over.
Well, I don't know that we would carry them indefinitely.
Yeah,
Right,
if,
right,
if,
right, right. It might be something we'd have to review every now and then, but.
John?
I was just going to comment, so we get this question a lot, even in terms of employment with the town, and so we generally don't hold. We have an opening, we advertise, we go through the process. Holding for 6 months is sort of what we're doing right now, based on the board's policy request. I would just be concerned that, I want to make sure that if somebody, if we don't want to miss somebody or something, you know what I mean? It's just an additional administrative burden, and the idea is if you're going back out, you just want to make sure it's fresh, and that the people who were interested before are still interested. It's just a lot of extra hoops for us to go through, and although it seems like, there's one, so it's not a big burden, that's when you start losing and missing people, because we don't have this large request, this large rolling request. So my suggestion or my request would be, the 6 months will do, but I really don't, I would be concerned about holding these things indefinitely, because that's when you start making mistakes and you start losing people. When it comes to employment in volunteerism, your best bet is to get out fresh advertisements and a fresh process and get fresh people that are interested. That's my 2 cents. Again, we'll do whatever the board wants, but.
Okay, well, having just put the policy in place or refreshed the policy or whatever, I'd like to perhaps give it a year to percolate or whatever and see what feedback we have in terms of operation before considering changes again. But we can certainly revisit that at the 1-year anniversary, Julianne.
Thank you.
Yep. Is that it for report?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Leslie?
Okay, wanted to thank both the fire department and police department for their reports. I know the fire department puts together a lot of great statistics about everything that takes place in the department. It's really phenomenal to look, very interesting to look at. All sorts of divisions and ways of looking at all the incidents and the numbers and who, and not names, obviously, but gender and age, all these kind of things. It's really a very interesting report. So I want to thank the fire department for that. And as far as the police department goes, I wanted to thank Detective Sergeant Griffin for presenting, making a presentation on vaping, drug and alcohol use at the fall, ARHS Fall Sports Night. I think that's terrific. I think the more that can be done, the better. And if the same kids hear the same presentation over and over and over again, the better. You know, because that way that maybe they're talking to their friends, they have their facts straight. And it's obviously a huge issue. So the fact that the police department is making that kind of effort is wonderful. Was it well received? Do you feel that people were attentive and listening?
Yeah, no, it typically is. He's done that type of presentation for several years.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
it's typically well received, just like this year.
yeah, that's wonderful. Well, please thank him for me for doing that. I think that's wonderful. John, is there any update at all or any further information about, from Mass Highway about light sinking downtown? Forget what the last thing was on that.
Yeah, so the issue was whether or not the lights were synchronized and working properly, so that in an ideal world, when the lights are green, they should all be green to move traffic. And I think we've all experienced when you're down in the downtown, sometimes you'll have a green light, but there'll be a red light, and there's really no place to go. Our understanding in speaking with the traffic engineers from the state is that every time somebody presses the walk button, it throws that synchronization off for a cycle or two. And so if you're down there when there's a lot of people around and it's busy, so ironically, during the worst traffic, if people are hitting the button to be able to cross the road safely, that throws the synchronization off. Now, it does, my understanding is that it auto corrects because, you know, that it has to get back into sync. But that's when people experience where things don't seem to be lining up. So I know Fred Litchfield had a conversation with the state. I'm not sure, Scott Charpentier, the DPW director's here. Scott, I'm not through the chair. I'm not sure if you have any other additional information to add.
Summarize it accurately, and when you have pedestrians that are traversing multiple intersections, it's a compounding effect. So if you're going from, you know, one corner of South Street to the other, and you work your way over to CVS, you know, you've touched 3, possibly 4 crosswalks. At that point, you know, you've impacted a lot, and it takes a while for the cyclist to readjust safely.
Now, ironically, when you're in the downtown and you're making your way through, you probably notice this as well. If it's off-peak and it's not a busy downtown, you tend to sail through. The light synchronization works, you see all green lights, you make your way through, and you're like, hey, this is how it should work. It's the pedestrian, making sure we have safe pedestrian traffic, unfortunately, impacts that synchronization. But they did confirm for us that there's nothing wrong. There's no issue. The loops that read the cars and trigger some of the lights in the off hours, everything seems to be working correctly.
Okay.
So I'm not sure. We have a very difficult downtown, as you
Yes,
know.
yeah.
You know, it's where all the cart paths and the horses just kind of came and conjoined in and out at right angles. So you have a lot of intersections and lights in a very short amount of
Yes.
space.
Yes,
So it just makes for a difficult coordination.
yes, okay.
So
Okay, thank you.
you're welcome.
Understood. Thank you. Also, I want to encourage residents to use the clothing donation bins at each of the schools. Those are actually PTO fundraisers. And the clothing and shoes get picked up out of those bins, I believe, once a week, and they weigh what's in each bin, and then the schools get money based on the weight of all that. So it does really help the schools quite a bit, because they do try to help different endeavors that go on in the schools that sometimes the budget can't cover. So that's very important. So think about those bins, they're all there. The town website looks great. I like it. It's nice to look at, it's fun to look at, it's easy. I like the button in there for notify me. It's right there. There's really, as Julianne alluded to, signing up for different things. I think you just go in there and you can sign up for agendas, minutes, town news, and that sort of thing. So I think that the way it's laid out does make sense. It's easy to see the calendar, current issues, the EEE, all those things are in there. It just looks, it's very pleasant to look at. I haven't been through the entire site yet, but I can see how it's laid out, so it looks very, very nice. I want to thank David Kane for that. And also, you can also easily see the vacancies for boards, committees, and commissions, so that's important as well. And lastly, I attended the K-8 meeting last week, and Superintendent Martineau was very grateful to the police and fire departments for the recent work on the fire drills at some or all of the schools. I'm not sure if they've all have taken place already. Great. Okay, well, he was very appreciative of that. Spoke very highly of the departments. So I wanted to pass that along to you. And he also did speak about bus issues. He said for the most part it's going well, but there are definitely some issues that they have to iron out. And that gets into the whole issue too of, crosswalks and different things that go on to watch out for the kids. So that ends my report.
Thank you, Leslie. Tim?
Just to add to what Julianne said, thanking the staff for all their work on the EEE. I did want to extend a thank you to the school superintendent. He did send out an email informing parents of everything that was going on, how the schools were going to address the issue, giving parents the option to keep their kids inside, permission slips for kids to be sprayed with mosquito repellent. It's just, as a parent, it was helpful to get that information from the school and know that they were being active in addressing the seriousness of the issue. I did get some emails from some parents asking specifically if the schools and the schoolyards had been sprayed on Sunday night. And I don't know if anybody had any information on that. Just nobody saw, done at night, so nobody saw the trucks going by.
Sure. Through the chair, I can respond. The schools have control of their property, so obviously, I've been in communication with the superintendent throughout the entire weekend regarding this issue. Spoke with him again today. I corresponded by email. So they are in the process of having all of their schoolyards sprayed, but they have a notification that they are going to be sending out to all the parents, letting them know that that is occurring. So keep in mind now, the entire town was sprayed through the aerial application. So the entire town's been sprayed once. Mosquito control came through on the roads, just like they didn't come into your property and spray in your backyard. They sprayed from the roads, and again, they're very heavily focused on the areas, the wetlands, the areas where there are mosquitoes breeding and in higher concentrations, but the entire town was sprayed. But something will be going out. I know that I put the superintendent in touch directly with the director of the Central Mass Mosquito Control, who, by the way, his name is Tim Deschamps, and I just want to say, fantastic response. I was able to get a hold of Tim and speak to him at any hour of any day over the weekend. Their response to our request to spray the entire town, basically within 24 hours, it was just a phenomenal service that they provided. Very happy, and their response and assistance to the schools will be just as good, I'm sure.
Okay, great. Thank you. I know it's not something to take lightly, so that's excellent to hear. Thank you. And then one other thing, I just wanted to congratulate the fire chief on his article. I think it was in the Community Advocate about him being a data geek. I thought that was great. I have a master's degree in analytics, so I myself am a data geek. So I just wanted to send out an invitation to Chief that if he ever wants to geek out, send me an email and,
You guys can hang out and do linear regression analysis together.
yeah, I can show him how to do some pretty cool graphing in Tableau and maybe write some R scripts, so, I just wanted to send that out. That ends my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Dawn?
Yeah, I just have one item. Scott, question on the roads that are being resurfaced that are right now basically stone. When will they have a solid surface on them?
The stone, the rubberized stone treatment you have, that is the surface course. That is the final treatment.
So West Street, Green Street, those will stay like that?
Green Street was, received a rubberized chip seal. Lawrence, portion of Lawrence, a portion of all of Tomlin Hill and a portion of Otis Street, all received rubberized chip seal. That is the permanent surface treatment.
And
We applied that treatment to Ridge Road in Talbot
Whitney Street as well.
3 years ago and Whitney Street 4 years ago. So it's the new version of the old-fashioned oil and stone road. So we haven't reswept it yet. We're gonna get out by the end of the week and resweep it. Next week, that surface will have very little loose stones.
so it eventually,
Yeah, if you drive Ridge, I think it was 2
Yeah,
years
so-
ago.
Yeah.
So I live on Ridge, obviously,
Yes.
and it's a smooth surface, there's no loose stones at all. You know, one of the things, and I don't want to steal Scott's thunder, but, you know, under the pavement management plan, one of the things that we're trying to do is touch as many roads as quickly as we can to stabilize them. Because as you know, once you lose a road, it's 20-some odd dollars a square yard instead of a couple of dollars to take care of it. And this is one method to touch 2 roads for the price of 1 to stabilize them. We're not doing all roads like this, but in certain, if the road is in good enough shape, this is a way to preserve that road for the foreseeable future so that we can continue to save other roads before they fail, essentially.
so it'll actually be a solid surface eventually.
Yeah, go to Whitney or Ridge and you'll see how it looks.
It's
These
a
were
nice-
motorcyclists that
nice.
were concerned.
It's a nice flexible surface treatment. It provides a little more friction than just standard asphalt, which is some of those rural roads that don't get a lot of sun. It improves driver safety. It's the type of application to be used on roads like Brewer, Green, Ball, in those sections of town where there's maybe less kids on scooters in neighborhoods, it's more vehicular traffic.
Thank you. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Don. I just want to note that the Master Plan Steering Committee will be meeting next Thursday, September 19th. This will be a public meeting, and the committee will be looking at some implementation plan that has been devised by the consultant. The following Monday, September 23rd, the committee chair and consultant will be here for our Board of Selectmen meeting to make a presentation. It's just an informational presentation. There's no action the board needs to take, but they'll present us with that information so we can catch everybody up on what the latest of the master plan is. And then later in October, the planning board will be holding a public hearing and joint meeting of boards at the library, I believe, which will be an opportunity for the public to also hear the plan again, see some of the details, and offer some additional input. So just to have those noted in your calendar as upcoming meetings relating to the master plan. And finally, I just want to note that this past September 4th was the 5th anniversary of the loss of Brian Arsenal in Afghanistan. On Saturday, September 28th, they'll be holding the Brian Arsenal Memorial Ride, American Legion Post 234. 9:30 is registration. The ride begins at 12 noon. You can attend the ride, participate in the ride, or you can also make donations. I believe donations are being accepted at Credit One Credit Union under the subheading of the Brian Arsenal Memorial Fund. So that's again on Saturday, September 28th. And that concludes my report. John?
I just want to follow up on the comments regarding EEE and town notifications. Just so the residents at home are clear, there's 2 levels of notification that you can sign up for through our webpage. One is through the town news, which is generally non-emergency type things. If you'd like a copy of the Board of Selectmen's agenda, the moment it gets posted, emailed to you, you can sign up for those, and the planning board. That's one level. The other that I strongly encourage residents to sign up for is the Code Red. If you go on the website, on the bottom right-hand side, you'll see the icon that says Code Red. That's our emergency notification. That's what went out on Saturday. It's not just, hey, there's a fair coming, or there's a meeting that's happening. This is health and safety items that people need to be aware of. If there was a lost child, or if there was a public safety issue, it would go out and it would light your phone up as an emergency. This went out as a general notification because it wasn't an immediate life-threatening emergency. But I strongly encourage people to go on and sign up. You can have, your notification can come to you by your landline, by your cell phone, by email, or by text, or by all of the above. And you can have just not just your phone, but your spouse, your children, anybody else living with you signed up, so everybody's aware of it. And the beauty of that is you will get that notification regardless of where you physically are if you sign up for your cell phone. So if you're at work, there's an emergency in Northborough, and we put out a Code Red notification, you will be notified of that. The other thing too is, I know we've talked about this at great length on the board, there is no reverse 911 anymore. That is a defunct technology. It no longer exists. Code Red is the replacement for that. And what Northborough actually took the lead in that regard, and we negotiated for, and with multiple towns in our area, so that everybody is on the same platform. So actually, if you're traveling around in the area, it will notify you of an emergency that's taking place where you are. So again, I strongly encourage people, it takes just a couple of minutes to sign up. If you haven't already, please do. It's so effective. I know Lieutenant Galvin is here. He's the individual who helped me this Saturday when we put the messages out. Within 3 or 4 minutes of hitting send, we had reached over 4,000 phones. And so it's very effective, and it really helps us get the word out. But people have to take the proactive step, unlike reverse 911, to sign up for it. So again, go on the town's webpage, bottom right-hand side, Code Red icon, just click on that, fill in your information. And we don't sell it, it doesn't go anywhere else. It's just for emergency notification. So I strongly encourage people to do that. I was asked by the health agent, since I seem to be spending so much quality time with him lately, to please let folks know about the free flu clinics that are coming up. Tuesday, September 24th, from 3 to 5 p.m. at the Milliken Middle School, and then October 10th from 12 noon to 2 p.m. at the Northborough Senior Center. There's no charge for any resident 6 months or older, no co-pays, just bring your insurance card and wear short sleeves. The only other thing that I have that I would like to speak to this evening, if the board would indulge me for a couple of minutes. We received today the results of our Worcester Superior Court contempt of court complaint against Santo, Anza, and SA Farms. So on July 9th and 10th this past summer, we were in Worcester Superior Court, and some of the members of the board were there, filing a contempt of court complaint against Mr. Anza and his operations. And that stems back from an October 2018 preliminary injunction the town received regarding nuisance odors and issues off that property at 429 Whitney Street. So there's a preliminary injunction in place that said you can only bring in feed for animals. You can't bring in organics and waste material. We had evidence and provided testimony in Worcester Superior Court that we believed, and as did the Department of Environmental Protection, who issued 4 unilateral administrative orders against Mr. Anser for bringing in solid waste. And I'm pleased to report this evening that the court decision came out and it was in favor of the town. So we can speak as a board in executive session at your next meeting about what that means and some decisions the board will need to make. But the good news is, the town put forth a considerable amount of effort, working with the residents out there, to bring this additional complaint, which is, again, is in addition to the original complaint in October of 2018, that we received a preliminary injunction against that owner-operator. This here is a very serious matter, and, but the complaint decision is a matter of public record. So again, this is a point of information. We're not discussing it, debating it, or making any decisions this evening. But I just thought, for the record, publicly, the board would like me to point out the fact that we did get a decision, and it was in favor of the town. So I'm very, very pleased. A great deal of work went into that, and a great deal of work went in on behalf of the residents who had to provide testimony and affidavits, and at least in one instance testify. So again, this is just the latest round in a very long saga regarding this particular operation in this location, but the court saw it our way, which was very nice to have as an outcome. So,
Certainly welcome news. Thank you, John, to you, staff, town council, for all the effort that you made throughout this several years to try to reach some kind of remedy for what the residents in Coolidge Circle area have been suffering. So, much appreciated. Thank you.
thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you. Public comment? Any public comment? Hearing none. New business. First item is the amendment to the June 17th, 2019 meeting minutes of the Board of Selectmen. We had proposed this last meeting. This concerns the portion of our June 17th meeting that was held in joint session with the Planning Board to interview candidates and make an appointment to the Planning Board to fill a vacancy there. Following that meeting, the Board of Selectmen had produced their minutes of their entire meeting, including the joint session. And it was communicated back to us by members of the Planning Board that there was a portion of the deliberation attributed to the Planning Board that was inaccurate in reference to some information concerning one of the candidates, Mr. Brad Blanchett, who is the current chair of the Zoning Board of Appeals. So I had reviewed the video of the meeting, and I had proposed some text as a replacement for what was there. As I reviewed the meeting, it certainly was the case that the minutes, as they described it, were not accurate with respect to that portion of the meeting. And so we considered this briefly at our last meeting. Leslie had not had an opportunity to review the video and wanted to have that opportunity before deliberating or discussing this portion. So she's done that. And so we can proceed. I guess I'd start with a motion first before discussion. Is there a motion?
I move the board vote to amend the June 17th, 2019 meeting minutes as requested by the planning board.
Second.
Moved and seconded. And any discussion? Leslie?
Yes, I did actually watch the meeting in its entirety. And I actually like the first half of what is
Okay.
actually in there, which is, board members stress the need for better communication between the planning board and the ZBA. To me, that better reflects the kind of discussion that it was. The replacement that's being suggested, which is board members and Mr. Blanchett agreed that better communication between the planning board and ZBA would benefit both boards. That implies that there was a discussion and some consensus was arrived at, and that's not the kind of discussion that it was, to my mind. That's not really what I heard. To me, it was a variety of comments made by the planning board members about them. I'm trying to think what the issue was.
I think it had to do with at least feedback from the ZBA to the planning board for bylaws that were problematic in
Yes.
handling
Yes.
appeals for.
And there was a lot of criticism about the fact that he mentioned that there were loopholes and so forth during his interview. So to me, it was more a discussion about, really not a discussion, there were comments made about that. And to me, as a result of that, the first half of what is in there reflects more accurately the discussion that took place as opposed to kind of that feeling that there was a nice discussion and a consensus was reached, and Brad and the planning board agreed on it. That, to me, is not quite accurate.
Okay, would you prefer to amend the motion?
I would.
Okay. And would you care to offer the amendment?
Okay. Just read the,
I would say just amend the motion so that the replacement text is,
okay. I'd like to amend this particular motion to read, board members stress the need for better communication between the planning board and ZBA.
I'll second that.
amendment seconded. Any further discussion on the amendment? Tim?
Just to add, and just on what Leslie was saying, after having time to think about it, the replacement board members were, and Mr. Blanchett agreed that better communication between the planning board and ZBA would benefit both boards. The entire planning board was here and had a chance to voice their side of things. This, to me, almost sounds like Mr. Blanchett is speaking on behalf of the entire ZBA.
I wouldn't say necessarily you speak on behalf of the ZBA. I think in his role as chair of the ZBA, he was agreeing with the sentiment that it's not necessarily a commitment of any kind, formal commitment, but I think he was in agreement. I'm fine with the amendment that Leslie has, if everyone else is satisfied with that.
Yeah.
Okay. So, as amended, all in favor? Opposed? There's no, so, I think we're
Done.
satisfied with that?
We're done, and I do appreciate the fact that you did defer this until this meeting, and that I had the opportunity to look
Yes.
at the video again. Thank you.
You're certainly welcome, Leslie.
I
I
appreciate that.
appreciate that you wanted to be certain of,
Yeah.
of the issue before proceeding with it, so. Very good. Thank you. Item 2, discussion regarding Massachusetts Department of Agriculture and Resources, latest proposed amendments to composting regulations 330 CMR 25.00. John?
So this item on your agenda actually dovetails nicely to what the discussion we just had under reports, or rather my reporting of information under reports about the composting situation up at SA Farms. As you know, the Massachusetts Department of Agricultural Resources has made attempts to amend their agricultural composting regulations over the years. And the town has been a very, very active participant in providing testimony, as have the residents of Northborough. So we've been very careful and diligent to make sure that the residents know when these are occurring so that they can show up and provide testimony. I believe the last time we had over 50 people, approximately 50 people, show up, including most of the Board of Selectmen. But just to give you a little bit of history here, DAR's first hearing was October 20th, 2016, and we provided testimony regarding their proposed regulations. They then did nothing until they held a hearing again, or a subsequent hearing on August 1st, 2018. We provided testimony. We all showed up. Nothing happened again. And now, on August 12th and 14th of 2019, unbeknownst to me and the board, and apparently the residents of Northborough, they held a hearing at a different location. And again, it was advertised, but it was never communicated. Our legislative delegation was not aware of it either, because typically they would be watching these things, notify me. I would notify the board, notify the residents. So this hearing went off without any comment from anybody from Northborough, or any comments from the Board of Selectmen or the town of Northborough officials. And that message got back when we did find out. Obviously, we had some concerns that we did not want to give the impression to DAR that we were happy with their proposed changes. Subsequent to the hearing, they extended the deadline for testimony to September 3rd. And so what I did was, I, in conjunction with town council, reviewed those proposed regulations. There really wasn't much to look at, to be perfectly frank. They're almost identical to the proposed regulations that they provided in August of 2018. Now, in 2018, the Board of Selectmen, we provided a 14-page testimony that was read into record and provided at that meeting, which was held in Westborough, a nice convenient location
No,
for
that was
the
Foxborough Library.
Foxborough. It was
Yeah.
Foxborough
Little
Library.
out
And there
of
was
the way.
one, the other one was in Westborough. So we've had two.
Yeah.
So, in any event, we weren't aware of it. So what I did working with council was we went through it and we provided testimony. We also notified the attorney representing the residents in the Coolidge Circle area. We also notified the resident primary point of contact in the Davidian Farm area, just so that everybody was aware. We also I spoke with the chair of the Berlin Board of Selectmen. I know they provided testimony, so some things got in the record. Now, the most important thing that I wanted to stress, and I stressed this to our legislative delegation, was we have legislation pending to address some of our concerns with regard to composting. So there's the enabling legislation, right? And then there's the department that creates the rules and regulations, effectively administrative law, to how that enabling legislation gets implemented. We have not been able, the town of Northborough, get satisfaction at the departmental level since 2016, which is why we proposed the legislation that we did. The first time it went all the way through, made it through conference committee, it was ultimately vetoed by the governor. We have again submitted legislation. I anticipate that a hearing will be coming up probably within the next month or so. And my biggest concern was that all of a sudden, the AR has these proposed regulations that are the same as the prior ones. Nobody showed up, nobody provided testimony because we weren't aware. And when our legislation comes up in the conference committee and for the governor, I would not want it represented that everybody's fine with these proposed changes because nobody came out. Nobody came out and nobody testified because nobody knew. So the communication there could have been better. Having said that, we did make sure that we got our testimony in, and I felt comfortable providing it on behalf of the town because essentially the regulations that they're proposing are the same and our comments and our issues are the same. So I put a cover memo on our prior testimony that basically says, you haven't changed anything. You haven't addressed any of our concerns or any of the concerns of the residents in Northborough, and therefore, we're just attaching our prior testimony. And just for the record here tonight, and for people who might be watching at home, we had 3 key points that we stressed. 1, commercial composting facilities on agricultural land should not be exempt from local zoning and land use simply by virtue of the fact that they're on a farm. If you want to have a commercial composting operation and you're not on a farm, you have to go through site assignment, you have to go through local zoning, you have to comply with local zoning and land use. Just by virtue of it being on a farm, defies logic or common sense that all of a sudden it's exempt. The second was that the proposed amendments provide absolutely no local authority or input in any way, shape, or form. Their response to us with that comment was, now, after somebody files and they are issued a composting registration by DAR, they notify the Board of Health. It's meaningless. And it was meaningless when they proposed it in 2016, it was meaningless when they proposed it in 2018, and it's meaningless when they proposed it again in 19. It's just not acceptable. There is no avenue, mechanism for any input by the affected residents or town officials. The third point is that the proposed regulations lack meaningful setbacks, buffers, or other standards to mitigate what we know from our experience will be impacts on neighboring properties. So all they did in this version is the same thing they did in the last version, which is increase the setbacks for private wells to 250 feet and buffers of 100 feet. Well, we know from what we just talked about, the complaint that we filed against SA Farm, that those odors went for miles. And they clearly go well past 100 feet. So that is an absolutely unacceptable standard. And again, there's no mechanism for our input, there's no mechanism for the input of the affected abutting residents. They have done nothing to address any of these things in this last draft, which is why I want to state for the record publicly, this is exactly why the town of Northborough and the Board of Selectmen has asked our legislative delegation to file legislation that inserts some local authority and oversight for these operations. This past month, we have spent over $12,000 alone dealing with just composting issues, from a legal standpoint, never mind staff time and the pain and suffering, the aggravation of the residents that are impacted. The one change that they made, substantive change, in my opinion, my assessment, is there was a 20,000 cubic yard limit on material that can be brought onto any one composting site. And they reduced it from 20,000 cubic yards to 15,000 cubic yards. I don't know if you understand how much material 15,000 cubic yards really is, but I'm trying to put it into some context so that I could get my mind around it. A tractor trailer with high sides can hold 100 cubic yards of mulch, okay? That's light and something that doesn't weigh a lot. So, because there are weight limits to what these vehicles can carry as well. So depending on the material being brought in, it's somewhere between 50 and 100 cubic yards potentially. So you divide that into 15,000, you've got 150 to 200 plus 18-wheeler tractor trailer loads of material coming onto any one site in Northborough. That's a lot of material, it's a lot of truck traffic, that's a lot of impact, of which you, Board of Selectmen, and staff have zero input on. All we've done is we've been left handling the complaints, the legitimate complaints and concerns of these residents for years, and we have no authority to do anything except file special legislation, put testimony in whenever bad regulations are being proposed by the state agency responsible for overseeing this. And the last resort, and a very expensive resort, is to go to court, which is where we have found ourselves for the last several years. And it's a slow process that does not bring any swift results and relief to the residents. So I hope you don't mind. Again, I'm not putting words on the board. I sent it on behalf of the town, but all I did was reiterate the points and the testimony that you have all voted for in prior meetings. And I felt that we absolutely had to get this in. And I'm very disappointed that we weren't notified of this sooner, and that the residents, more importantly, didn't have time to show up, hear the debate, and provide their input in a meaningful way. So I hope and strongly encourage, as I have through our legislative delegation, that DAR not promulgate these regulations, because they do not address our issues and concerns, and they really haven't done anything meaningful, in my opinion, to deal with this public policy issue. So, with that, I can certainly answer any questions the board may have, but I know you've seen this stuff before, and you're well versed in what we have before us. Again, it's just reiterating these points and these issues and these concerns. And I'm shocked that the Department of Agricultural Resources has done nothing in any meaningful way to really address these concerns. Based on these regulations, we're gonna be in the exact same position we are today.
Thank you, John. I just want to thank you and Town Council for putting in the time on very short notice to try to get something into the record for this town and this board. And I did review the information and did find, as you noticed, that the regulations are in almost all respects unchanged from what they were last year, and certainly no accommodation given for the concerns that we expressed. So appreciate turning it around as quickly as you did and getting something on the record for the town.
Thank you.
Any other comments from the board? Leslie?
Yeah, I want to thank John too. It's irritating because you wonder whether they want to make it look like they're making changes and trying to, have us think that they really have, or that we'll just give up after a certain point and succumb to whatever it is that they're trying to do. But I do appreciate the fact that there was this deadline and you really scooted this in there. I think it's really critical, and they can see that we're not gonna give up, that we're persevering with this. So I really appreciate all your efforts, and our residents do too, so, thank you.
Item number 3, discussion regarding date and time of annual town meeting. This topic was raised by Selectman Kalen, who'd had some input, and Tim, I'll just turn it over to you to kind of lead us through this one.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. After last town meeting, I received some feedback from some residents in town, particularly parents in town, and their concern was how late town meeting has been running, and the difficulty they have attending town meeting, mostly because of childcare. Finding a babysitter is hard enough. Finding a babysitter on a Monday night that can stay till 11:30 or 12 o'clock is nearly impossible for most parents in town. You think of the babysitters are generally high school kids, and it's, you know, most parents aren't gonna let their high school kids stay out till midnight on a Monday night on a school night. So, you know, the information I got, or the feedback I got from parents in town was the time that town meeting was in, it was a barrier for participation. So I've done some research. I spoke with Chairman Perot about it. I spoke with Town Administrator John Cordair, staff, and I also spoke with Town Moderator. Had a great conversation with Town Moderator. Wanted to get his feedback on conversations or expertise he may have on how other towns are running their town meetings, times, days, those sorts of things. We had an excellent conversation, and it basically came down to what fits best for the community is when most towns hold their town meetings. John and the staff did a lot of great research, compiled a lot of information on dates and times for town meetings. And what they found was 88% of the town meetings are held during the week. There are a handful that hold meetings on Saturday. I don't think switching our town meetings to a Saturday would be in the best interest of the town. I might be wrong on that, but I know with all the kids and the athletics and activities that go on weekends, it's probably not the best choice for us. But the other interesting part of it was the majority of town meetings start anywhere from 6 to 7:30. So I think it would be interesting for the board to have a discussion about moving our town meeting earlier, holding it, say, from 6 to 10 o'clock. That way we get an earlier start. That way it gives people the ability to find childcare. They're not out until, 11:30, 12 o'clock. And I think it gives people that work, they get home at a more reasonable hour. And hopefully if there's issues that are important to residents, they'll be more apt to attend town meeting, and we'll see an increase in participation.
Thank you, Tim. Leslie?
Yeah, I agree with everything you just said. I got some feedback as well from people who were concerned about the same things, childcare and like getting home late, and there's still a babysitter there, and they're trying to figure out, that babysitter needs to get home themselves, so what do they do? I agree with everything. My only concern is that we need to figure out a way to actually make sure people get there at 6, because otherwise we spend an hour waiting for a quorum. So the meeting still doesn't start until 7 or 7:30 because people aren't there. So we have to figure out, maybe we could be creative in thinking about a way to really draw people in. I'm not quite sure what it would be, besides ham sandwiches or something like that, but, but, is there something we can do to get people there? I know people who commute might have a trouble getting there at 6. But still, there are a lot of residents in our community who don't commute and hopefully could get there at 6. It's not necessarily just the commuting age range that we want to get in town meeting. So Yeah, if we can get people there earlier, I'm all for that. I think it's very important.
Yeah, and the discussions I have with both John and Jason about that too is understanding that the 6 o'clock might be a little tight for people that are commuting. However, if there's an issue that compels people to attend, is it easier for somebody to leave work a little bit earlier than it is for somebody to find childcare late at night? And it's, those are, and again, I don't think there's a perfect solution that's gonna be absolutely ideal for everybody. It's just the feedback that I've gotten from
Same.
parents is this is an issue.
Yes, I agree. I heard the same thing, yes.
Dawn?
No, and I think even the senior population would prefer a 6 o'clock start, only because it's past their bedtime at 11 o'clock at night when the meeting stops. The one thing that becomes an issue, it's always to move to continue after 11 o'clock. That would still be an issue at 10 o'clock, that somebody could move to continue discussion, right?
Through the chair, yes, that would be a possibility, but it's no different than now where you could, I guess there's a difference between going from 11 and finishing at 12:30 in the morning versus if you're really close to wrapping up, going from 10 to 11 and being done. You're always gonna have conflicts, but I think that potentially sliding things back a little bit reduces the number of conflicts. And again, to the point about commuters, town meeting happens once a year. Our town meetings go one night or 2 nights. In the 10 years I've been here, we've never gone past 2 nights, and we've had many one-night town meetings. People can plan accordingly if they really want to come. We take vacations, we do all sorts of things with a little bit of foresight. The meeting date doesn't change. So it's a fourth Monday, and so you can plan accordingly. It's a good potential compromise. And I think the other thing that you saw at town meeting this year, there was a citizen's petition to move it from 7:30 to 7. That passed overwhelmingly. People really liked that concept. And again, the idea of wrapping up at 10 o'clock gets people out, and then, I'll tell you from the staff standpoint, we're here. So an earlier start time works. Logistically, there are no issues for us. We can accommodate that just fine, and it makes sense. As far as getting people there, I think that if it would be voted at town, if the board goes in this direction, it'd be a warrant article sponsored by the board for town meeting this year. It would be discussed, if approved. It'd be incumbent upon us to make sure that we really put information out there and remind people, as we do anyway, with the boards in the downtown and so forth. I'll just say one last comment with regard to town meeting, because I have colleagues all over the state who have town meetings at all different dates and times and weekends and so forth. And without exception, every one of them will tell you what I'm going to tell you right now, and that is turnout at town meeting is more dependent on what's on the agenda and the issue than the time and the date that you hold it on. Now, having said that, when people want to come, if it goes too late, that is a legitimate barrier to some folks, to some seniors, and to, it doesn't just have to be people with children, but some folks have to be at work very early, and that definitely poses a problem to them. But it's not going to be, this is no magic bullet, and all of a sudden we're going to have 500 people show up. But I think it does reduce one more potential barrier for some people who otherwise might have some trouble.
Thank you, John.
I would echo the sentiment that holding an earlier start time and having an earlier finish time per evening certainly would appeal to me as much as anyone. I work in Boston, I commute, I know what day town meeting is, and I'm gonna find a way to be here at 6 o'clock if 6 o'clock is the time. So I would echo the sentiments that John made, that people who want to be at town meeting generally find a way to get there, and will find a way to make the accommodation to do it. So if changing the start time can help people attend more of town meeting, attend longer, then I'd certainly like to go in that direction. And certainly the citizen petition at town meeting this past spring kind of signaled that in moving the start time back to 7 o'clock. So I don't think we have an action planned here tonight, but we'll probably take this up for further discussion at a future meeting and perhaps look for a way to collect public input on this. So, is that, yes?
I just wanted to thank John, thank the staff, and thank the town moderator for taking the time to help me research this and get all the information together. It's much appreciated. Thank you.
All right. Thanks a lot. Item number 4, update on dog park fundraising.
Well, I've got some more great news. We met at your last meeting to discuss this matching grant program through the Department of Conservation and Recreation about putting a dog park down at the Yellow Conservation Area at 0 Hudson Street. The town had to come up with $16,300 for our matching share, and we embarked on a fundraising campaign. And very quickly, one donation came in and plugged that need. Jody Del Rey and her family submitted a check for $16,300, which is the town's minimum required match. We have continued to fundraise, and we have a little over $18,000. We will need more money for ongoing maintenance, and I'm sure there will be things that the state may not want to put in that we may want to, some amenities, some benches and things of that nature. But as of today, right now, we have that check. We have submitted our check into the state, and the process is in motion for them to assign a project manager. And sitting here today, it looks like this project is moving forward. I do think it's important for the town and the board specifically to acknowledge the very generous donation by the Del Rey family. And we took the liberty of drafting a nice thank you letter for them. Just so folks know, it was specifically requested not to do a big press release, that they just wanted to make the donation, thank the town, but a written acknowledgement from the board thanking them for a very generous donation, I think is important and something that you might want to do. So
Yes.
I will put that before the board for your consideration.
Yes, sounds very good. Any comments? Leslie?
John, first of all, I like your use of the word embarked upon. And,
That was not intentional.
but.
That witty at this hour.
That's a good one. But that's fabulous. I mean, that's amazing, really. So I think very exciting. So do you envision this being something would be started in the spring? Is that what was discussed?
So we're waiting to have our project manager assigned from the state, but my understanding in just the back and forth with them is they'll assign somebody, the design work will take place, design and permitting, because it is in a conservation area. So it does need to be, reviewed and permitted, but that will take place through the fall, and then in the spring, the actual construction will occur. So in a pretty short cycle, and as I said the last time, from my perspective, the great thing about this program is they're responsible for the design work, the bidding, the public procurement aspects of it, and the construction oversight. So our role, to a large extent, is complete. I'm sure we'll have other input, and there'll be things, as I said, that we maybe want to do that maybe they isn't included in this budget, getting water down there, some benches, some shade structure, things of that nature. We can talk about those things, but the fundamental basic park, I think, is something that's going to move forward quickly.
Yeah, very nice. Yes, sir.
I also want to pre-thank Scott Sharpent here in the DPW too, because that will be another area that you'll be involved with.
Oh, don't open the door to him to ask for more staff right now.
Yes.
Yes, I will.
So thank you for that.
We're running the staffing models right now.
Okay.
Julianne?
So are the rules and regulations of the park going to be monitored by you or police or the animal control officer?
Well, I think I might have mentioned this at the meeting last time. So the rules and regulations will be the standard rules and regulations that DCR wants in place for their property. So they'll tell us what the rules and regulations are. Obviously, things like, picking up after your dog and things of that nature. What'll come down to, it's no different than any other public space right now. So if you take your dog down to 135, it just, Ellsworth McAfee Park, it just happens to be on a leash at the moment. But if you're not watching your dog and it's not behaving, then you call animal control, and animal control is the enforcement agency or agent. In the short term, if there's something serious happening and an emergency call would come in, obviously police would be down there and enforce. But I'll tell you this, you know, I have 2 dogs now, and I've, in anticipation of this, I've gone around to visit area dog parks. They're the most self-governing and self-regulated places. If you aren't watching your dog and you're not following the rules, the other folks that are there will let you know. Because the last thing they want to see happen is have the facility be closed because people aren't taking care of it or aren't following the rules. And again, you think, Tim, you were talking about people concerned about their children. For a lot of folks, their dogs are their children. And they take this type of area very seriously, and if people aren't following the rules, they self-govern, and if they don't self-govern, they report police. But animal control will be on a regular patrol down there, especially in the beginning, going down there, making sure that, you know, people feel that presence. But what I found in my research with other dog parks is, by and large, there are a few issues with them.
So there was one thing that I have been thinking about for 2 weeks since this was all proposed, and that was, I believe Mia said that one person can have up to 4 dogs? Was that?
Whatever the regulation ultimately becomes. I don't have that in front of me now, but that would be, there's limits to how many people, how many dogs can be brought down there.
So if we, at any point, have to tweak these regulations, we can't because of state-owned property?
No, I think the state is receptive. I think the state wants to make sure that minimum standards are in place for public safety as well as conservation of the area. And if the town were to request or want to impose tighter controls or stricter controls, I don't see why that would not be something they would entertain.
Okay, that's good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? No. Okay. Item 5, interview subcommittee, recommendation for appointment to the Housing Authority.
Mr. Chair, I move the board vote to appoint Elaine Solomon to the Housing Authority for a partial 5-year term to expire on April 30th, 2024, as recommended by the interview subcommittee.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Great, thank you. Number 6, annual reappointment of election officers. I think this is essentially a housekeeping item to a great extent. We annually review and approve the set of election officers who work the polls to conduct our elections. There's a lengthy list. Nearly everyone is a resident of Northborough, with one exception. I don't think there's a requirement that you be a resident of Northborough. In any case, we certainly thank all of these people for their willingness to be available and assist us during these. I see a lot of familiar names here from town meeting and town elections, so certainly appreciate the time and effort you put into it. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move the board vote to appoint those individuals who appear on the 2019-2020 election officer list for a term beginning on September 9th, 2019, and ending August 31st, 2020, as submitted by the town clerk.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Great. Item number 7, execution of cemetery deeds 1084, 1085, 1086, and 1087.
Mr. Chairman, I move the board vote to execute cemetery deeds 1084, 1085, 1086, and 1087.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor? And any other business to come before the board?
Just a need for an executive session regarding collective bargaining for police, fire, and Northborough Municipal Employees Association, as well as a negotiation regarding the value of real property regarding the fire station building project.
Okay, so this will be executive session pursuant to Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21, Subsection 3, collective bargaining, re police, fire, and Northborough Municipal Employees Association unions, and subsection 6, negotiations, re value of real property for fire station building project, Due to the chair's determination that a discussion regarding these matters in an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the position of the board, do I have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move the board vote to enter into executive session pursuant to Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 21, subsection 3, collective bargaining regarding police, fire, and Northborough municipal unions, employees associations unions, and subsection 6, negotiations regarding the real value of property for the fire station building project, due to the chair's determination that a discussion regarding these matters in an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the position of the board.
Second?
Moved and seconded. Julianne?
Aye.
Leslie?
Aye.
Tim?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. And the board will return from executive session only to adjourn open session.